Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and today I'm doing a really fun video. I'm covering my top 10 books of all time. I recently read a book that made it into this list. So because my all-time list has kind of changed and my channel's still super new and kind of getting a feel for what kind of books I like and what kind of books I'll talk about on this channel, I thought now would be a good time to do an all-time favorite books video. So let's get into it. These are some of the books that are near and dear to my heart. They're books that made me laugh, that made me cry, that made me feel something. Basically books that left a mark. So before I get into the official top 10, I do have some honorable mentions. These are books that just felt weird to not mention at all, but technically aren't in my top 10. So first we have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is a fantastic fantasy book. So far I've read the first two and I'm about halfway through the third. The series as a whole has been amazing. It takes place in a world where there are parallel Londons, each London having varying degrees of magic. Some have no magic and others have magic that's like completely destroyed, unruly and unkept, that it's kind of destroyed the world. It's basically devoured that version of London. So the main character, Kel, is an Antari, and he can travel between each of these Londons. He has magic powers that allow him to do so. So that in itself is such a fun premise and kind of building block for the entire story to unfold. This series is filled with so many morally gray characters, which I love. We love a good morally gray character. It has some fantastic villains. One of my all-time favorite characters in general comes from this series, and that is the one and only Lila Bard. She is a thief. She's a knife-loving wannabe pirate, and I just adore her. She is such a fun character to read about. So, fantastic book. Almost made the list, but not quite. Next, we have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This book is such a fantastic mystery. It is truly an ode to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Like And Then There Were None, it's a whodunit with a creepy rhyme that seems to be coming true. It follows this family who's kind of stranded on a house on an island where this rhyme shows up on a chalkboard and kind of starts to come true as one by one they're picked off in the way that the rhyme has depicted. So the whole time you're like, how many of them are going to survive at the end? Who's doing it? Because there's a limited number of people on this island. And then the twist at the end was fantastic. I did not see it coming. When I thought I had it figured out, I was proven that I know nothing. It was one of those twists where it makes you want to go back and reread the entire book. And I even flipped through the book and there were hints to it. And they were just so masterfully hidden that I didn't see them. It was a fantastic whodunit, and I love a good murder mystery. And this is just one of the best in my opinion. Then I'm grouping two together because I love a good ghost story, and in my opinion, these two are the best. We have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James and Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. These two are both great ghost stories. They're told in alternating timelines, so they kind of go back to a certain point and then in present day, and you kind of see how history repeats itself, and it's just, they both are so good. And then lastly, we have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This book is just as whimsical and just as magical as the movie. I saw the movie first, absolutely fell in love with it. Didn't even know it was a book. And then when I found out it was a book, I was like, I need to read this. And it was just so perfect. And I love this book. So for those of you who don't know, Howl's Moving Castle follows our main character, Sophie, who gets cursed and turned into an old woman. So she seeks out the infamous Howl, who is supposed to be known as this kind of brutal, evil wizard, but super powerful, and she thinks he can reverse her curse. So she stumbles upon his moving castle, kind of inserts herself trying to break this curse that's been put on her. She kind of finds out Howl is not what the legends make them out to be. And it's a great story of friendship, of love, of adventure. It is just so, so perfect. So would highly recommend both the book and the movie. Let's get to the actual top 10 list. This list is pretty close to being in my top 10 order, but some of the books might change position given on the day and mood. But for the most part, these are kind of generally where they land. So I tried to be as accurate as possible and make decisions on where I would actually rank them. So, alrighty. So, coming in at number 10, we have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Rowell? Why can't I say that? Rowell? This book filled the Harry Potter sized hole in my heart after J.K. Rowling really disappointed me. And while I will always love Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling as a person, not a fan. So this is basically the LGBTQ friendly Harry Potter. It's fast paced. It takes place at a magical school. There's kind of this ragtag group of friends who the main character is the supposed chosen one and has all this pressure to defeat this huge force of evil. So it follows kind of his endeavors in doing that. It follows him and his friends, and there's a fantastic love story. I would highly recommend this. It was just such a fun, cozy time. Then at number 9, we have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book just blew me away. It was everything I didn't know I needed. I didn't even know cozy fantasies were a thing and that I needed them in my life. And then I read this and I was like, where has this been? So this follows our main character, Viv, who is an orc who's leaving kind of her battle-worn past behind her, and she moves to a new city and tries to open a coffee shop. This is a world and a time where coffee is very unheard of. Viv herself encountered it in a faraway gnomish city, and so she's bringing it to this new city that she's moving to, and selling these people on hot bean water is not easy. It follows her opening her shop, kind of forming this ragtag group of people who help her build the shop, help her market it. There's an adorable ratkin baker named Thimble, and this book is so charming and lovely and just feels like being wrapped up in a warm blanket with a hot cup of coffee. So would definitely recommend. Number 8 is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This series was such a surprise to me. It is such a highly hyped series, but I wasn't expecting it to be a series of almost complete 5-star reads for me. There was a few 4 stars kind of in the middle, but overall, I felt like it just got better and better and better. I love the world Sarah J. Maas created, and she really is a master of the character arc and of really turning a character around, or either making you hate a character and then love them, or switching it and making you love them and then hate them. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster with these characters, and I was just along for the ride. It was such a good time. So Throne of Glass follows Selena, who was orphaned at a young age and raised as an assassin, but is currently a prisoner when this story takes place. She has a chance for freedom when she's asked to compete in a competition to find the king's champion. So I love a book with a magic competition, with trials, with fighting, training, all of that. And that's what this book had. It also had kind of an unexpected murder mystery aspect, which I love a whodunit and I love fantasy. And that's what this delivered. So that was unexpected. Absolutely ate it up. And like I said, this was an amazing book. The books to follow are just as amazing, if not better. So it's worth the hype. That's all I gotta say. Next, at number 7, we have Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This book is one of the best fantasy novels I've ever read. It is so masterfully crafted and methodically planned out. Patrick Rothfuss has such an attention to detail, and you can tell when you're reading this that nothing is really like fluff. Everything has a purpose. His storytelling is so deliberate, and the magic system is complex and unique, and I absolutely loved being immersed in this world. This book definitely has a slower pace than other books, especially a book like Throne of Glass, where it's just like quick, one thing happens after another. This has some really long like build up to what I would consider being like even the main part of the story, but it's all necessary. It was just done so well. So in this book, we follow Kvothe as he's orphaned as a young boy, and then it follows him as he survives as a teenager into a young adult, where he is finally able to be admitted to the university, which is a magic school in this world, and there he's able to learn the art of sympathy, which is the magic in this world. The characters in this book are just so well written. Kvothe himself is so interesting to read about. Yeah, it's just such a fantastic book. And I can see why so many people say this is a staple in fantasy. It truly encompasses all the parts of fantasy that make fantasy a great genre. So number 6 is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This book is so nostalgic for me. I read this as a teenager and absolutely ate up the trilogy. It was just one of my all-time favorites back then, still is now. I love the Shadowhunter world in general. I had read The Mortal Instruments, or all the books that were out at that point, because at that point I think only 4 or 5 were out. So then I moved on to these. This still takes place in the Shadowhunter world, where Shadowhunters use runes and magic to hunt down like various monsters and demons. But it takes place, it's like in Victorian England, and I loved the combination of magic, history, and almost like a steampunk industrial vibe to it. There were like gizmos and gadgets that were used, and a different type of monster that was created using this kind of steampunk technology. And it was just, it's so well done. Like, if you're gonna read any Cassandra Clare, read this. Just so great. Also, ignore these covers. They have been cheesy for years. I almost didn't read them as a teenager because I was embarrassed by the City of Bones cover. It had like, I was like, what, 14 or 15, and it had like this shirtless guy on it, and I was like, I don't want to be carrying this around. But anyway. So number 5 is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This book is just, this book has my heart. Not only does it follow people who love books and is really an ode to book lovers, there were so many scenes where I feel like Emily Henry was like, I see you, you bookish person, you'll get what I'm talking about here. And it was kind of like almost like an inside joke between book lovers. It was amazing. I think I had a goofy grin on my face the entire time while reading this book. So Emily Henry obviously is a romance writer. This book does have a great romance plot line, but it also is a book about sisterhood and a book about really finding what's important to you. The main character kind of has to make some big decisions, and throughout the book, it kind of follows her making those decisions. And a lot of things are thrown at her that make her question what's important. It's such a great book. Yes. So number 4 is the book that actually prompted this video. This is my latest addition to my all-time favorite book list, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Just need a moment. This book, it is So perfect. I may still be on like a reader's high from this, and it's been like a week and a half since I read it, and I'm just still like, I'm still reeling. So this book is historical urban fantasy. It's an enemies to lovers story, and the writing is so stunning. It is so well done. It is just absolutely beautiful. The way the story's told, the pacing, everything is just perfect. And I'm really hyping this book up. I get that. And I know there was a lot of hype around this book, so I went in a little like, I'll be the judge of that. Kind of like Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing disappointed me based on the hype. This deserves the hype. So this book follows two rivals who are working at a newspaper. They live in a world where there is magic, and currently two gods are at war and humans are their soldiers. The main character's brother goes off to war to fight for the goddess, and he has not been heard from for like 6 months. In a desperate attempt to contact him, she sends him letters that she's typed up on her typewriter and sticks them in a wardrobe. They disappear. She's not sure where they go, but she's hoping that they get to him. They live in a world with enchantments and magic, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that these letters could be getting to him. Little does she know that these letters are somehow getting to her rival at the newspaper that they work at, and he knows it's her. She doesn't know it's him, but they continue to correspond. He plays along, and over this correspondence, they manage to find love in a time of war, and they create such a bond over words that it's just so beautifully done. It's not a spoiler that it's an enemies to lovers story and that they're corresponding. It's all on the back of the book. So much happens between that. So much happens to lead to that point. Like, it's a great story. So would highly, highly recommend. I already want to reread this so I can annotate my copy. But yeah. So book number 3 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book has such a special place in my heart. It is one of the most atmospheric, magical books I have ever read. It also is one of the most unique books I've ever read in that it is not a character-driven book. It is completely world-driven. The characters take a backseat to the world being the night circus that Erin Morgenstern has created. It's such a special book. Like, the magic of this book is how you experience the night circus, how immersed you are in the world. It creates such a feeling of longing, of wishing you could be there. It's so well done. So basically this book is about a circus that arrives in each town without warning, and it's only open at night. It's got a very atmospheric vibe. I'm going to use that a lot. In that the entire circus is black and white and there's pops of red. That's just how it is. So the story follows two magicians who are in a magical competition. They've been training for this their entire lives, and the night circus is the stage for the competition. They are basically creating these crazy experiences within the night circus. They're trying to outdo one another in this competition. Little do they know, only one of them can survive the competition. That's how the competition will end. Things get complicated. So this book follows them over years and years of creating various experiences within this circus. And when I say circus, it's not like a circus with lions and tigers and acrobats. Like, it's like an art piece, basically. I would highly recommend it, but go in knowing it's gonna be a different experience, and you're probably gonna want more from the characters and you're not gonna get it. I've read this twice, and the first time I read it, I was a little bummed because I wanted more from the characters. I wanted more from their story. And the second time I read it, I realized that's not the purpose of the book. That's not the point. It's magical. It is just, it's incredible. Then number 2 is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This book literally is like being wrapped up in a warm blanket. It is probably the only book to ever make me cry happy tears multiple times. There definitely are sad moments, but Just the amount of joy I felt throughout this book was just incredible. The cast of characters is so unique and so just so eclectic and quirky and perfect. I love them all for different reasons. It truly is a wonderful novel. I would recommend going in not knowing much about it, because when I read the back of the book, it almost made me not want to read it, because truly the synopsis does not do it justice. It doesn't capture what the book has to offer. It's got some amazing lessons and is truly a cozy, heartwarming story. If I was to give a very brief synopsis, I would say this is an urban fantasy. It takes place in a world where there's magic and magical beings. The main character is kind of like a social worker for orphaned magical kids, and he goes to various orphanages that have to take in these kids and just to make sure they're operating safely and up to standards, whatever. So he's sent to an orphanage that has some really like high risk magical children, and that's kind of where the story goes. All the characters in this book are just so lovable. Even when they're not lovable, it's just incredible. So I would absolutely recommend this book. Alrighty. So the final book coming in at number 1 is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. This book is truly one of the most beautifully written, lyrical, almost poetic books that I've ever read. There were times where I would literally reread paragraphs just because they were so perfectly and beautifully written. I was in awe. And this book took me quite a while to read because I was rereading paragraphs. I savored every single word. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue follows our main character, Adeline, who makes a deal with the devil, so to speak, and in exchange for immortality is kind of given a curse that everyone she interacts with, when they look away from her, they instantly forget her. So people are unable to remember who she is. So she's truly alone in life, but she gets to live forever. So it follows her throughout kind of periods of her life. She's hundreds of years old at this point. Flash forward to modern day where she encounters someone who does remember her, and she's not sure why, she's not sure how. Somehow this guy can remember her. So you're trying to figure out why, and for the first time, she has someone in her life, and it's just such an incredible story. It brings up some interesting questions, like, would you want to live forever if people couldn't remember you? V. Schwab is one of my all-time favorite authors, and this book really kind of sealed that position for her as being like my all-time favorite author, because this book was just so masterfully written. And it's just truly unique, even in her like catalog of work. It's so special. My all-time favorite book. So those are my top favorite books up to this point. It's kind of a ever-evolving list, but the majority of those have kind of been staples in my list for over the last probably 3-ish years that I've gotten back into really reading. They largely encompass my 2 favorite genres. This list largely encompasses my 2 favorite genres, mystery and fantasy. So really no surprise there that a majority of the books fall into one of those categories. If you've read any of these books, or if you have an all-time favorite book, please let me know. I love to hear what people's all-time favorite book is. I feel like it's just really interesting to hear what someone's favorite book is, because it's really personal to you. So please let me know down in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, do that. So I just do finger guns. If you'd like more content like this, and if you are interested in similar books to these, definitely hit that subscribe button. I try to make at least 1 or 2 videos a week. Yeah. Have a great day or night, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.